Today is launch day for the third book in the Balar series, The Evil of Balar. It is available in paperback, ebook, and hardcover, also on Kindle Unlimited. Um, I'm going to do a little preview reading of one of the stories in this book. Minor spoiler warning if you haven't read any of the books, it'll be a nice dark fairy tale. If you've read the first one, you might recognize a name or two. If you've read the second one, there is a bit of a revelation here. This is Koshchei the Deathless. A long, long time ago in the harsh northern lands of the Rus, a hungry family made an arduous trek. A father, a mother, their 4 children, and a mule had walked for 3 days through the soon-to-be snow-laden trees of the taiga. Winter was fast approaching, and, judging by the early chill, it was to be a harsh one. This and the looming threat of Tartar incursion made food and work a rare thing indeed. The family were desperate. 4 young mouths and another on the way. They walked through the chill, hugging their raggedy clothes to their bony bodies. There were no words between them, no sound but the crunching of the track, the growling of stomachs, and the occasional snort from the mule. Father pulled it along, his wife and her swollen belly atop it, clinging to their youngest, a girl. The mule was slow but strong. There had been many a time when the father had considered slaughtering it and curing the meat, but it was a sturdy mule, one that could help him haul logs to the market, something he could not do with his knee as it was. No, the mule had its uses. His 3 sons walked on either side of him, 13, 11, and 7. The eldest carried a branch, occasionally swinging it at the evergreen branches dislodging the gathering snow. He saw all the world as his enemy, every tree, every animal, something to overcome and obliterate. Such manly ambition made his father's heart swell with joy, for he knew that this boy would make a fine warrior one day. The 7-year-old found great amusement in the eldest boy's campaign against the branches. He giggled as they walked. The father's heart sank as he watched the boy's sunken cheeks and stocky frame. The few doubts that he had carried with him when the trip began were left by the roadside several leagues back, beside the fallow fields. He needed to make this sacrifice. God would understand. He eyed his 11-year-old son, his second born. He walked beside them with his head in the clouds, paying no heed to the eldest brother's mock swordmanship or his youngest brother's mirth. He was dark-haired and dark-eyed like his mother, with a lanky shape that was ill-suited to sword and plough in equal measure. His thin arms could not bear any useful weight, and his mind was filled only with questions and arguments, things that were of little use on hungry winter nights. God would understand. Through the endless woodland they walk, snowflakes falling steadily around them. Occasionally the wind would whisper in strange tongues, or the mule would snort. Their tired legs never stopped. They were not sure when they first noticed it, but at some point they were in the depths of an alien quiet. No birds. If there were any amid the trees, puffing up their plumage against the cold, they were careful not to make a sound. It was a quiet that rested uncomfortably against the ear, even less comfortably on the empty stomach. Whatever it was, it made the little girl in her mother's arms cry as they bounced along the track, her red cheeks glistening with tears. Father kept glancing about as they went, for he was certain that there was something at the edge of his vision, something he could not quite make out. Was it the flutter of fabric, the glint of a raven's wing, or the eyes of a hungry wolf? Perhaps it was none of these things, or all at once. He would never know. Even the boys sensed it. The eldest held his sword at the ready, a reassuring hand on the 7-year-old's scrawny neck. He too scanned the tree line. So palpable was this queer feeling that even the 11-year-old seemed to take notice. "We're nearing our destination," he said, as if it was God's truth. None of them replied, for what good would words do now? There had been a time for words. Mother and father had argued for 3 nights about the bill posted in town, 3 nights of tears, tears that dried on the hungry 4th day when the 11-year-old left the chicken pen open for the fox. The choice had made itself. God would understand. It was God's will that they heard about the bill. It was also his will that the miserly fur merchant who paid them for the firewood was a man of letters. He read it to them. Children wanted. A wish fulfilled equal in value to the child's skill. Call at the palace of bone before the shortest night. He too knew where the palace of bone was. A cursed place, he warned them, his strange golden eyes gleaming. The master of this place is older than the good book itself, a creature from the shadowy times before the Lord brought light to the world. This creature will keep his promise, but offer no more than you are willing to lose. It cost them a full coin for directions to the so-called palace, an investment they all hoped would pay off. The boy said nothing when he was told of his fate. He made no protest, only a nod of acknowledgement. He kept pace with the rest of the family, giving no indication of reluctance or an impulse to flee. Now, here they were, walking in silence. Gradually the track became a valley, the serpent of gravel cutting a cleft into the landscape, the tree line rising on either side. Their feet crunched over jagged stones. The smell of pine was replaced by the sweet smell of decay and powdered bone. Incomplete jawbones, broken spines, and jagged ribs protruded from the ground as if a vast graveyard had been displaced onto the track by a landslide. Still, there was no birdsong. Ironically, there is really birdsong outside while I'm recording this. Still, there was no birdsong, just the crunching of their feet and the quiet sobs of the little girl. The farther they went, the more the valley deepened until they were flanked by sheer rock faces on either side. The late autumn sun was a distant memory. The light that came from the grey slot far above was dim and watery. As they ventured deeper, the gravel underfoot became less and less, while the discarded bones became more and more. The passage grew narrower, so much so that the mule refused to continue. It dug its hooves into the ground of crushed carcasses, braying loudly in protest against father's tugging on the rein. It was so loud that it drained the color from the 7-year-old's cheeks. This is going well. He clung onto the eldest brother's sleeve. The animal's jarring cry echoed back at them from the endless pathway between the cliffs. There was nothing ahead but a misty corridor of jagged rock. There was nothing behind but more of the same. Mother and father exchanged worried glances. They had to leave the animal. After some discussion, the eldest bravely volunteering to stay with it, a new agreement was reached. The family would wait here, while father and the 11-year-old went ahead. What followed was a stilted goodbye, crowded with unsaid things. "Goodbye, brothers," said the 11-year-old. "I will miss sparring and wrestling with you, though I never got the better of you. Goodbye, little sister. I will miss naming the clouds with you. Think of me when you teach our newborn brother the same. Goodbye, mother. Thank you for all you have sacrificed to let me be, though I know it was not worth the cost." They each mumbled empty responses in return. Their eyes were filled with so many things: love, sadness, regret, perhaps only a hunger. Perhaps it was none of these things, or all at once. He would never know. However, those looks would linger in his mind long after they were all dead. Father said his farewells, telling them that he would not be long. Then he and his son set off down the passage. The little girl's cries echoed. They could hear mother try and soothe her. "Come now, dear. God will understand." They knew not how long they walked, but their weary legs ached as if they had travelled 1,000 leagues. Narrower and narrower the passage became until they had to sidle along like crabs. The farther they went, the fresher the bones seemed to become. Some of them were webbed with strings of rotting meat and leftover sinew. There was grit and gristle and bloated organs. Man, beast, or unimaginable monsters, it was impossible to tell what they had once been. There was movement among the viscera, a wiggling spray of gorging maggots, uncountable and glistening amid the carpet of carrion. "Why are there no flies?" the boy asked. Father had no answer. He feared to utter even the simplest word, for he knew that the terror in his heart would put a tremble through his tongue. If the boy knew the depth of his father's fear, surely he would run, and the journey would be for naught. They did not come this far to starve. Step by crunching step they continued, kicking maggots from their ragged shoes, jagged rocks jabbing against their shins and elbows and nearly catching their faces. It was not long before they were forced to squeeze themselves along the ever-narrowing passage, road-worn clothes scraping along the stone. In this moment they were thankful for their slender frames, for without it they would surely have become trapped in the tight space. Narrower and narrower it became. The skin on their hands scraped bloody. Their breaths held as they went. It became so narrow that they feared that their heads might no longer fit. "Are you sure this is the way?" asked the boy, but again father was too afraid to answer. On and on they pressed until there was no room in their lungs. On and on they scraped and pushed and panicked. Twice father thought of turning back. Twice the boy refused, his curiosity pulling him ever onward. Just when they thought they could push no further, just when the path was almost impassable, the narrowing ended. They emerged in a cacophonous cavern with wide walls and a tall roof toothed with ancient stalagmites. A dreadful shape dominated the space, bone-white and gauzed in sinew, an immense palace. Battlements and watchtowers, baileys and palisades, all built from bone and ash and more rot besides. A great fortress beneath the ground, or so it was said hereafter. The ground was littered with yet more bone. Here the skeletons were more complete, still holding their uncanny shapes. Animals, perhaps, though the boy and his father had never seen such things. They certainly could not name them. They had to clamber and climb, for there was no clear path across this field of bone. Still, there were no flies. Still, there were only squirming maggots to welcome them. On they went, the strange fortress growing larger as they approached, the walls impossibly tall, the towers unreachable. Yet there was a way in. They picked their way through the gaps in the defenses, stumbling, tripping, bones cascading. Once within the walls, they found a yawning gate, an archway of bone adorned with rows upon rows of teeth. Beyond it was only shadow. This was the only entrance. Steeling their hearts, father and son pressed on. The darkness of the archway swallowed them, step after step, deeper and deeper. The way was smoother, for the bones underfoot gradually gave way to cold stone, smooth and cold, marred only by the occasional loose pebble. Moment by moment, their eyes adjusted to the gloom. Their ears, moments ago filled with the thump of their hearts, took in the silence. In the stillness, they heard the echo of their footsteps racing back to them from a long way away. A strange light emerged as they went, not bright or blinding, but dim and feeble, not unlike the light of a moon behind a veil of mist. They gradually became aware that they were walking through a vast hall. Shapes became visible in the gloom, a distant wall, distant pillars, a conclusion to their journey. At the end of the grand hall was an enormous chair, taller than 10 men. The light was sparse, thus they thought the shape upon it was a grand statue. However, As they neared and spied the legs as thick as ancient tree trunks and the leather boots as large as carriages, they realized that it was a person, a giant, the largest being they ever did see. His great hands gripped the armrests of his massive stone seat, each finger the size of a man. The giant's torso and face were veiled in shadow, yet somewhere there was a gleam of those large eyes, like the shimmering of coins beneath the shallow waters of a riverbank. Father approached, head bowed, taking trembling step after trembling step. The boy, who knew little of the world, kept his head raised, looking at the great being in the eye. Eyes that closely watched Father's unsteady step. The room rattled, and bone dust fell from the high ceiling. The booming sound rumbled through the floor just as much as it swept through the air. A voice. One so loud and so deep that it rattled their spines. "Who dares approach me?" asked the giant. "Oh, great sorcerer," said Father. His voice, which the boy had always believed to be as rough as mountain stone, seemed small and mouse-like in this grand space. "We humbly come in answer to your bill. May I present my son?" His father bowed towards him, hands outstretched as if he was offering the man a fine pelt. There was another rumble. "I am no mere sorcerer," said the giant. "I am Koshchei, the one who has defeated death. I who have mastered the 7 forgotten arts of shadow and light. I who have accomplished deeds mortals can barely dream of. Why should I take this boy?" The rumble died down. The boy could see sweat bead on his father's forehead. He lowered himself to his knees, never looking up. "Oh, great Koshchei, please come. We come in answer to your summons. I beg you, oh, great Koshchei, my family is starving." There was a sound of rushing wind, the giant breathing. I already have an apprentice, mortal," he said. "You have come too late." Father lowered himself to the ground in front of the monster. "Please, great Koshchei," he whimpered. "He is a boy of many talents and skills. He will be more than a match for the other boy, whomever he may be." The boy felt his cheeks burn. He was not sure of what talents his father was referring to. So you say," said Koshchei. "I am to take your word, peasant? Boy?" Bits of stone tumbled from the dark ceiling, clacking like hailstones around them. The boy, who felt no compulsion to flee from the path set out before him, felt only curiosity. He stepped in front of his father and looked up at the terrible giant. The rumble started up again. "You will prove yourself to me, boy?" "I will," he said. His tiny voice seemed somehow smaller in the massive space. The words echoed back and forth, growing large enough for the giant to hear. Thus the words were spoken like a marriage vow, great and terrible. The ground shook. "Very well," the giant boomed. "It shall be done. Heed me, boy. Failure means death." Father sank lower to the ground, his cheek resting upon the pebble-splattered floor. "Oh, thank you, great Koshchei. Oh, generous and magnificent Koshchei. My family are humbled and grateful. We—" "Silence," the giant proclaimed, the world around them shuddering. "What do you wish, peasant? Speak it, so I may judge it against the boy you offer." Father bent down even lower to the ground. The boy looked down at him, shocked at seeing the man he admired brought so low. "Oh, great and terrible Koshchei, I have many mouths to feed and nothing to give them. We give you this boy, this dear talented boy, in hopes that you will not let my family starve." The palace shook as the giant spoke. "Very well." The haunting silence that followed would live with Father until the end of his days. It seemed to last both for an eternity and was over in no time at all. It was broken by an echoing squeal, the sound growing louder and closer. Out from the darkness ran a pig, snorting and squealing. It was almost the size of the boy. It trotted up to father, sniffed it at his face, and then trotted around him excitedly. "This is yours," proclaimed Cochet. "It will feed you for 7 winters, but only if you slaughter it at the right time. It will follow you wherever you go. Keep it alive until you are home. Only then may you kill it." Father threw himself down again. "O great Cochet, we are not worthy of this gift. You have saved the lives of my family and—" "Begone!" spoke the giant. The word was a nail to the skull. Father stumbled up. "Yes, great Cochet." He gave a final nod towards the giant and then scampered off the way he came. He glanced back occasionally to see if the pig was following, which it was. But at no point did he look at his son. Soon he and the animal vanished into darkness. The boy looked up at the throne. He was startled to see that it was empty. The giant had vanished. Out of the silent gloom came a tapping on the stonework floor. A crooked, cloaked figure emerged, his bald head as white as bone, his grey beard curled down from his chin, and his eyes shone like silver coins. Even in his hunched pose, he was somewhat taller than the boy's father. He hobbled up. "How will they leave?" asked the boy. Hummed the great Cochet, eyeing the boy. "It is easier to leave than it is to enter." In this form, his voice did not rumble, it scratched. "They will starve," said the boy. There was a hint of sadness in the statement, or so it was said hereafter. "You think so?" asked Cochet, his terrible eyes burning into the boy. "Explain." The boy looked down at his shuffling feet. "They're hungry. They will eat the pig before they are home." He looked up to see the sorcerer smiling. "Very good," said Cochet. "How can an animal feed someone for 7 winters? Cochet nodded thoughtfully. "This I will teach you," he said. "Your family will never find out." He gave a cold laugh. "Good. You impress me, boy. Come. There are things you must see, things you must know, ways in which to prove yourself." This was the frightening house of the foulest sorcerer ever to walk the land. This was Cochet, the eater of bones, devourer of souls. Cochet, the one who had thwarted death. That ghoul that sprang from the corpse of Con-Con-Cac, son of Otork. Some say that Cochet was the devil's own apprentice. Others whispered that he was shown the 7 arts by a man with golden eyes. Others still, who were wise in the ways of the world, knew that it was best not to mention that these things were one and the same. Cochet lived in a palace of bone that dug itself into the ground like a festering thorn. It was to this place that he brought his prizes, princesses and fair maidens stolen away from their castles or marriage beds. The gloomy halls, powdered with bone dust, would echo with the sound of their passions, for even the most virtuous woman would succumb to his unnatural seduction. What he offered them in exchange for their fleshly pleasures is known only to them and the dread sorcerer himself. Wronged husbands, righteous heroes, and coin-starved mercenaries would take up arms and saddle their steeds. Some rode for justice and good, while others for fame and fortune. Perhaps it was none of these things, or all at once. We would never know. They cut down any they saw as friend or ally to evil Cochet. Sometimes they were right. Most times they were mistaken. It mattered little, for their cause was just, and God would understand. Eventually, these champions would find their way to the Palace of Bone, stout hearts and sharp-edged steels, crackling torches, and polished armor. Sure step by sure step, they ventured deeper into the labyrinthine halls of this, the unholiest of places. Wary step by wary step, they confronted the shadows of this, the darkest of spaces. The truest souls and mightiest of hearts eroded in the palace of bones, for these virtues were nothing more than a thin veneer concealing petty greed and empty-headed recklessness. One by one, the shadows of their own hearts bested them. One by one, Cochet drew out their souls and sucked the marrow from their bones. The former would stave off his ever impending death. The latter would sustain his withering frame. Hero after hero, prince after prince. No one knows what happened to the women, for history cruelly forsakes the female in all things. A time came when the souls of mortal men would no longer sate the evil Cochet, for flesh is a fickle thing. With poisoned quill and bloody ink, the sorcerer penned a summons, a bill to be posted in towns across the land, a call for unwanted children, young bodies into which he could pour his withered soul should they prove talented. This, again, would be a way for him to cheat death. And so it was that the boy came to the palace of bone. His heart knew only wonder and not a touch of fear, or so it was said hereafter. He took in all that he saw with wide-eyed awe. Cold-hearted Cochet took him through the many hidden passages of the palace, showed him the deadly traps and confounding illusions. He let him witness the monsters in their cages and the Bukavak swimming in the flooded chamber. He walked him through the halls lined with dragon bones, down corridors lined with impossible doors. He showed him the music chamber where his pride Goosely, cast in gold and strung with Rusalka hair, rested, waiting to sing a damning lament. He took him around the vaulted room where spiders spun at endless webs in their shadows, and a single shaft of light illuminated a gilded cage. Within, a forlorn alconost sat on her perch, too sorrowful to sing, her red hair and vibrant feathers dazzling in the sunlight despite her sorrow. All this his new master showed him and explained without reservation or doubt, all besides the most secret room of all. A room overgrown by a starved oak, as pale and as sickly as its unnatural master. At its heart, the tree held a box, wherein lay Cochet's layered secret of immortality. This he showed to no one, especially not Erlich, the Lord of the Dead. He walked the boy through the room of treasures. This glistening hoard held the riches of 1,000 princes, those hapless heroes who perished in the palace of bone. Jewels and coins and golden chalices, bright armor and sparkling rings. A more dazzling trove the boy never did see. All that glitters is not meant for us, Cochet explained. We do not care for such earthly things. We deal in matters of art and mind and soul. Do you understand, boy? I do, said the boy, though this was not the whole truth of it. If we do not need it, why do we keep it? The dead eyes of Cochet sparkled in their shadowy sockets. Payment, he said. There was a strangeness to his voice then, the boy noticed. Not a voice that could command a storm, as it had been and ever will be, but a smallness of fear. It was only momentary. Payment for another, he said, his cold voice booming once again. Come, boy, there are more curiosities to witness. And so the deathly shape of the dread sorcerer led the boy onwards, through turns and switchbacks, down narrow passages and uncountable steps, a route no mortal could make sense of. They went across a bottomless chasm spanned by a narrow glass bridge. The boy followed in his new master's footsteps, matching him tread for tread. My other apprentice, said the voice of Cochet, echoing across the massive space. She has shown great promise. He came to an abrupt stop, the boy nearly walking into him. He threw a glance back across his bony shoulder, his eyes as cold as 1,000 winters. To survive here, boy, you need to be better than her. Better? Asked the boy, his small voice dropping away down the yawning void below them. Better, said the dread sorcerer. Many have come, many have died. All have failed to best me. This is not your purpose here. Be better than Simona, and I will give you power beyond your wildest dreams. Power, said the boy, relishing the flavor of the word, his true hunger forgotten. And so it was that Koshchei the Deathless led the boy to a chamber, a space that he could call his own, a bed, a desk, a chair, a place for fire, and a porridge pot that could never be emptied. This was more than the boy ever had before, and all that he would ever need after. It was one of many such rooms. Each had a bed, a desk, a chair, and so on, all the same, all empty, save the one at the end of the stone-carved corridor. This was home to the other apprentice, Simona from beyond the Lena. She was pale, scrawny, and about the same age as the boy. Her white hair and pink eyes frightened him, an emotion she enjoyed invoking in others. She spoke in half smiles and full boasts. Every word she uttered teased him. Every question she shot at him took his measure. Simona cared only to pry him open, to get at all he held within, or so it was said hereafter. What is your gift? This was the first question she asked him. The boy did not know how to answer. My gift is zoimancy, she told him on that first day, showing him her nest of wicker cages and jars. In each was an unholy creature, melded and twisted forms of things that were once merely animals. Zoimancy, an alchemy of flesh and bone, eye and tooth, the black art of forming monsters. This one is named Hubris, she said, teasing a two-headed snake out of a basket. Blue-black scales glinted in the dim light, which fell from the holes in the stone roof. One head was biting the other. He will consume himself, she said, and I will find a glorious use for what remains. The boy had few words for her, for he had never seen such things, though he did not turn his gaze away in fear. Instead, he walked among her jar-laden shelves and her whispering baskets, eyes wide in fascination. If you're lucky, I'll feed you to my children, said the girl. This is all you will be good for, because my master will never pick you. We will see, said the boy. Has he named you yet? Asked Simona in her hissing way. I have a name, said the boy. Had a name, she said. You have shed that skin. You are new. He has not given you a name. Perhaps you would not need a new one. Yes, my name is good enough, said the boy. The girl laughed. It was cold and mirthless, a laugh that a she-wolf might offer a wounded fawn. No, because you may not last. His first apprentice did not. You are the third. A sorcerer is never free from enemies, Koshchei explained the day after the first day of training. As long as the 7 arts are practiced, as long as the hearts of men are discontented, there will be magic in this world. Magic is difference. Magic is imbalance. Magic is taking what you should not have. As long as it is practiced, there will be those who will try to set it right, either by taking your power for themselves or preventing you from wielding it. Do you understand, boy? I do, master, said the boy, though this was not the whole truth of it. You need a new name, Koshchei proclaimed. What you were before is dust. Here you are made anew. Henceforth you shall be known as Maliskar. Maliskar? Said the boy, trying the name on for size. It is only the first part of your name, boy. Your deeds or your fate will fill in the rest. Come, let us prepare. There are a great many enemies rallied against us. It is only a matter of time before Mother Yaga and her other daughters assail us again. And so it was that the dread sorcerer took the boy under his wing. He taught him how to read entrails, see fate in the flight of birds, and ways in which to deceive the eyes of mortal men. The boy consumed the knowledge as greedily as a starving family might a fatted pig. Soon he was familiar with the hum of crystals, the boil of cauldrons, and the bramble words of forbidden incantations. In all this, there were things he could not master, for the ways of beasts were beyond him. He left the monster to Simona and her reptilian manner. In all this, there was one thing he excelled at, for he was a weather maker. This aptitude was discovered by accident during an exercise in haruspicy. I can totally read that. Evidently, animal entrails did not seem to sit well with the boy. Chiromancy, said the dread sorcerer, pulling his hood up against the sudden rain. They were outside, above the palace, upon the grey rock. The sudden deluge was turning the dark pools into pink streams. Entrails glistened. A valuable talent. Floods, famine, and more. There is more power in this than you might guess. Once an important field of study at the school of Sholomance, a once great place where here he placed his bony fingers on his sodden chest, acquired basic knowledge of the arts. I will teach you in such matters, should your soul be equal to the task. He waved a hand at the viscera. Leave this to the haruspices and soothsayers. Your talents lie elsewhere. He turned his pale face to the angry sky. Focus your efforts into controlling this. And the boy was pleased, for he believed that he had pleased his master, or so it was said hereafter. His tutelage in black magic continued. He was shown the way of the highest peaks and the deepest valleys. He marched along with the seasons and the cycles of death and rebirth. The boy learned of harvest times, the price of grain, and how nothing persuades a man like an empty stomach. In time, he was shown the deepest secrets of the world, learning of shadows and monsters and dragons that ride the storm. Your mind is like a mountain, said Gaucher one day, nodding approvingly. A skilled craftsman can carve his fiction upon the stone. It will outlast him. It will outlive him. And those that come after will seek truth in history where there were none. I write these words upon your mind now, my apprentice. They will endure, sharp and clean. He placed a bony finger on the boy's brow. But know this, even stone crumbles to nothing in the face of eternity. He gave a cold cackle. Yet you will never meet eternity, boy, so the stone will serve until your bones are dust. Crochet glanced at the empty sky crawling with stars, nary a storm cloud in attendance. Focus, boy, he said, a bitter edge to his voice. Prove yourself. Unleash the tempest. Many a dry night passed. He will eat us, said Simona. This is what will happen when we fail. His blunt teeth will rip our fresh flesh from our ribs, and his hungry tongue will suck the marrow from our spines. He will do all this while we are still breathing, while we are screaming for our lives. The boy, who hailed from a small village where people tended not to eat each other, found that he did not believe her. He will turn us out into the cold, never to speak to us again, he said, for this was a punishment he was familiar with. She hissed at him. Her pink eyes were transfixed upon a handful of spiderlings. He has given us art, she said distractedly, not gifts we can take with us. What then? Said the boy. Then he will make us forget. She let the spiders run down her palm into a jar. Suck in the weather of our minds until we know nothing. One tiny arachnid remained on her hand. She brought it up to her pink eyes and stared at it. The boy leaned in close, watching the small creature limp and stumble on malformed legs. Then there is only one thing left to do anyway. He jumped as she brought her other hand down in a clap. She brushed the remains of the spider away and grinned at him. I will not fail, said the boy, though this was not the whole truth of it. In his heart of hearts he knew that it was only a matter of time before he let something slip. He would let the chickens out again, so to speak. And then one day a visitor came to the Palace of Bone. It was the dead of winter, the longest night of the year. The bone-scattered passage that had been an obstacle for supplicants and would-be heroes alike opened to welcome the stranger. He came on foot, no horse, no carriage, no retinue. He brought the stillness of the night with him, the sound of his footsteps swallowed up by the long shadow he cast in the moonlight. For him, the path was clear. His arrival might have gone unnoticed if the boy had not snuck out that night. He had been sitting upon the rocks, trying to conjure a blizzard to no avail. Desperation marked his efforts and dogged his dreams. The boy feared to fail, feared to become his master's dinner. Here he was, insomnia's prisoner, awake to notice the coming of the stranger. He crept behind him, ducking from shadow to shadow, following along the opening path. The stranger was dressed like no man he ever saw, adorned in the shades of grey and black, a wide brimmed hat shading his features. Yellow hair as long as a lion's mane poked out from the hat and curled over the back of his collar. The boy crept along, his dirty feet padding softly. He hid behind larger bones, peering out from time to time. The stranger kept walking, his head heading straight towards the mouth of the palace. He did not glance about or raise his eyes in wonder. He merely walked along, glancing straight in front of him, as if he had seen it all before. There was a clear path ahead of him. The bones had been moved aside, though the boy could not recall anyone doing so. Even the crowded cavern seemed suddenly open to the sky, as if the Palace of Bone was welcoming the stranger, or so it was said hereafter. Skittering from shadow to shadow, the boy made a careless step and sent a pile of bones clattering. The sound bounced around the now open cavern. He scrambled behind a large rib cage and held his breath, heart pounding. He risked peeking out. The stranger had stopped. Slowly his head turned as he glanced back. Only then did the boy realize that the stranger's eyes were pure gold. The man smiled, a wolfish smile. Come, boy, he said in a voice as deep and as rich as the ocean. Walk with me. Accompany me within. Something about the man made the boy grow cold, though he knew not what. He clambered over the bones and approached the man. My name is, the boy began, but the stranger held up a gloved hand. I know your name, boy, he said, every syllable of it. And your name, master? Asked the boy. The golden-eyed stranger smiled. It is known to you already, for it lives in your heart. He gestured towards the mouth of the palace. It is time for payment. The boy matched the stranger step for step. The man was filled with secrets. The boy was shocked to discover that many of these secrets were his. You fear failure, said the golden man. You fear kindling disappointment in your master's eye. The same disappointment that flared so brightly in the eyes of your mother and father. The boy said nothing, for he knew the truth of it. You will not fail, proclaimed the golden man. They walked into the palace of bone, the cold, cobwebbed walls surrounding them. Only the boy's slapping footsteps made a sound. The stranger cast a long, dark shadow, despite the gloom. After a few silent strides, the boy asked, How do you know? The stranger smiled, revealing several golden teeth. I have seen your heart, boy. It is a ledger, a book of balances and transactions. While your head might be otherwise occupied, your heart knows who owes you and how much. His smile broadened, like I do. Side by side, the two of them walked. The man had not told him where he needed to go. They simply walked. Some uneasy part of the boy knew the destination. The palace itself seemed to open up for the stranger. There was a sense of terrible inevitability. How will this stop me from failing? Asked the boy. The golden man laughed. It was a sound that warmed the boy's heart, for he had not heard a thing so joyous since he had been taken to this place. He almost laughed with the man, though he knew not how. Because, said the man, you know what you owe your master and what he owes you. And what is that? Life, said the golden man. I don't understand, said the boy. You will, said the man, and left it at that. Turn by turn they arrived at the room of treasures. The glittering hoard of 1,000 princes, the jewels, the coins, the golden chalices, all seemed somehow humble in the presence of the stranger. Bright armor and sparkling rings seemed gaudy and worthless. You are here for this, said the boy. Yes, said the golden man. Little by little your master pays what he owes me. The man produced an empty leather bag from the recesses of his traveling cloak. What did he get in return? Asked the boy. The man lowered himself to his haunches and started placing handfuls of treasure in the bag. A secret, he said. A secret with many layers. May I know the secret? Asked the boy. The man gestured at the room at large. Do you have a lifetime of riches? Not yet, said the boy. Do you have something to offer me that no other mortal can? Not yet, said the boy. In that case, there can be no transaction, said the man, though there was no malice in his tone, only good humor. The boy bent down and helped the man gather the riches. No matter how much they placed in it, it never seemed to fill. Do you know how to control the storms? The boy asked as he hauled a polished breastplate into the mouth of the bag. No, said the man. The ways of nature are not my concern, only coins and contracts. Commerce is holy purpose, boy. You will do well to remember this. Anything that a man is willing to buy has value. Whether, not so much. Certainly not in the short term. The boy nodded to show his understanding, though this was not the whole truth of it. Coin by coin, jewel by jewel, they emptied the room. Will he eat us? Asked the boy. If we fail, that is. The man smiled his golden smile. He will do far worse, he said. However, I do not believe that failure will come into it. Eventually the room was clear of treasure. Once the final coin was dropped into the bag, the golden man laced it up and held it over his shoulder. It clinked heavily with the weight of treasure. It was certainly bulky, but it certainly did not seem to contain an entire trove. I want to learn your art, said the boy, the art of contract and coin and the greedy hearts of men. The golden man looked at the dirty little boy. No, he said, showing his teeth. This is not what your heart desires. I have seen it. Money cannot buy what you seek. His golden eyes narrowed. However, should you survive this place, I will find you. You will be of some use to me yet. How, said the boy. How can I survive this place? The golden man took a heavy, coin-rattling step towards the boy. He leant in close and whispered in his ear. His gilded words took root in the boy's heart, and so it was that the boy began plotting his escape, or so it was said hereafter. It is unclear how many winters came and went. Simona from beyond the Lena grew from colorless girl to colorless young woman. Her white hair was as long as she was tall, her tongue more comfortable with the savage speech of animals than the letters of human language. The scrawny boy from the faraway village grew into a scrawny young man. His short stature stretched out along long bones and long fingers. There was a storm in his mind and a cold wind in his heart. It is unclear how it unfolded, but the dread sorcerer suspected that it all began with the stranger's words. All those many years ago, he had planted the seed of rebellion in the boy's ear. Now it was to bear fruit. On a hollow night, when all was still and all the world pondered their troubles, the palace of bone cracked. It sank in on itself, for the room filled with the starved oak had been breached. The secret had been let loose, and the spell had been broken, or so it was said hereafter. The earth cracked, the stone rumbled, ancient bones crumbled to powder, ancient rooms fell into darkness, secrets were lost to the void, as is the fate of all things. It was said that Koshchei the Deathless cried out when the shell broke upon his head, but we may never know the truth of it. All that was known was that someone crawled out of the falling rubble. A lanky figure dug himself out of the ground. No, let's try that again. A lanky figure dug himself out as the ground swallowed the palace of bone. Covered in pale dust, battered and scratched, the young man known as Maliskar ran for all he was worth. He did not stop to witness the result of his betrayal, for he knew he was being pursued. Amid the falling and the shattering and the clouds of dust, a monster emerged. A massive serpent slithered from the destruction. Her scales were as pale as the moon. Her white-blue eyes shone with fury as she moved with lightning swiftness. He ran as the giant snake pursued him. He ducked and turned as she struck and struck, fangs bared. It was not known how far he ran, nor is it known how he escaped her. But escape he did. And so it was, long ago, in the far-off land of the Rus, that the dread fortress of of Koshchei the Deathless fell. What fate befell the sorcerer himself we may never know. The young man did what needed to be done. Surely God would understand. All right, you can find that story and many more in Book 3. It's just a little reading. It's part of the sort of background lore of the world. Everything else takes place in the late 1800s, sort of gaslight era, turn of the century looming. At the heart of this is a murder mystery, and there is a great many answers in this book. So let me know if you want to pick it up. I will be answering questions on Goodreads. The link should be in the description. And yeah, please comment, tell me how bad I am at reading. But yes, thank you very much.